Hello everyone. Hope you all are well. So here is the part 2 of what if Naruto falls for temptation with Tsunade. Let's continue. Naruto quickly turned around to hide the blush that had formed on his cheeks. It was nothing, forget about it. Anyo-sa, how about I treat you to some ramen, in apology for hitting you yesterday? At the word ramen, Naruto instantly perked up. Okay. Later at Ichiraku. Tsunade looked at her now empty wallet and the stack of empty bowls beside Naruto. Where the hell do you pack all that food, Naruto? Don't know, Naruto said through a mouthful of ramen. After eating his ramen, Naruto and Tsunade walked back to their apartment. After entering and taking their respective baths, they noticed that there was only one bed. I'm sleeping on the bed, Tsunade declared. No way. I'm sleeping on the bed, replied Naruto. It was like that for a while until Tsunade thought of a solution. Why don't we gamble for it? One game of cards, loser sleeps on the couch. Never to back down from a challenge, Naruto hastily accepted. Alright. Get ready to sleep on the couch, Tsunade. Tsunade explained how they were going to play, 13 cards each, good, better, and best hands, the one with more winning combinations win. The game was on. Tsunade shuffled and cut the deck, after which dealt the cards. A pair, a full house 5 and a straight flush. It's impossible to lose, Tsunade thought as she arranged her cards. Ready? Tsunade asked. Yeah, Naruto replied as he finished arranging his cards. Here we go, Tsunade said as she laid down her first 3 cards, a pair of 10s and a 2. Naruto laid down his first hand, which was composed of a pair of 8s and a 5. Tsunade -1, Naruto 0. Tsunade placed her second hand down, a trio of 5s and a pair of kings. Full house, she said. Naruto placed his own cards down, a full house composed of a trio of 7s and pair of 2s. Tsunade 1, Naruto 1. This is it, both of them thought as they reached the last hand. The tension was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. Tsunade slowly pewed her hand down, a straight flush composed of straight and all diamonds. Seeing the shock on Naruto's face, Tsunade was about to declare victory when Naruto, who still maintained the shocked expression, slowly placed his cards on the table. Flush, Naruto said slowly. Now it was Tsunade who was shocked as she saw that Naruto had won. A royal flush, all diamonds. Tsunade 1, Naruto 2. Looks like I win. The-chan. He placed emphasis on the chan, which only served to irritate Tsunade further. Just you wait, you little shrimp, I'll get back at you for this. Dream on, old hag. Uzumaki Naruto never loses, Naruto proclaimed triumphantly while adding a thumbs down for effect. Later. Tsunade stirred in her sleep as she heard the sound of someone tossing and turning. She followed the sound to find Naruto, who was tossing and turning in his sleep, tears streaming down his cheeks. After draping the blanket over him, Naruto seemed to calm down. Don't worry, Naruto. With me as your sensei, I will make sure that your dream will come true. And after saying that, she planted a beep on his forehead. Later that morning, Naruto woke feeling a little bit more refreshed than usual. After looking around the apartment, he saw that Tsunade was nowhere to be found. She must have gone ahead. A quick bath and some cup ramen later, Naruto quickly left his apartment. Naruto arrived at the training field to find Sasuke and Sakura waiting. Ohayo, Sakura-chan, Naruto shouted. Sakura winced at the volume of the greeting. And then hit Naruto on the head. Baka, it's 5 a.m. Shut up. Gomen, Naruto replied sheepishly while nursing his head. Yo, a voice from their left said. The three turned to the source of the voice to find Tsunade in full jonin uniform and sporting 2 red armguards. We're going to do something interesting today. Survival training. We already did that at the academy, sensei, Naruto whined. Ah, but this one is a bit different. This actually a test to see if you are worthy of becoming genin, Tsunade said. All 3 soon-to-be genin paled. This test has a 66.6 failure rate. The objective is for the 3 of you to attempt to get these 2 bells from me, she said, raising said 2 bells. The one who fails to get a bell is to be sent back to the academy and will have to repeat another year. Tsunade walked over to one of the 3 logs and placed a clock on top of it. You all have until noon to get these bells from me. Time starts now. And with that, Sasuke and Sakura vanished. while surprisingly, Naruto remained. "Don't you know what a ninja does?" said an exasperated Tsunade. "The term, ninja, refers to someone who is an expert in stealth, you know. The great Uzumaki Naruto doesn't need to hide. I'll just beat you up then take those stupid bells," Naruto shouted arrogantly while pointing at Tsunade. Tsunade sighed and popped her knuckles and neck. "Looks like I'll have to teach you what being a ninja is all about, you little brat," as she started stretching a bit. "Bring it on, old hag," Naruto said while shifting into a fighting stance. Having finished stretching, Tsunade said, "By the way, if you want to beat me, come at me with the intent to kill." Tsunade then stomped her foot into the ground, creating visible cracks in the earth as she relaxed into a stance. She stretched out one arm, gestured, "Come on," a smirk visible of her face. Hajime. For the first time, Naruto stared at Tsunade, sizing her up. It was like this for a few seconds, then, quickly reaching into his holster, Naruto flung 3 kunai in Tsunade's direction. Tsunade caught the first 2 kunai, then deflected the third one, causing it to land in the ground beside her. She looked up just in time to see Naruto's fist heading for her. Extending one finger, she tapped Naruto's arm, deflecting the punch and causing Naruto to lose his balance, leaving him open. After which, Naruto found himself with his arm held behind his back, and a kunai near the back of his head. "Is that all?" Tsunade asked mockingly. A ninja is someone who is trained in the art of stealth. Charging headfirst into a fight is the samurai's job. She then threw Naruto into the nearby river. "Where are the other 2? She thought. Her train of thought was broken as 2 shuriken flew out of the river and sped towards her. She casually caught the 2 shuriken, but was surprised when an explosion of ninja smoke occurred and 2 Narutos were now clinging onto her arms. More splashes followed and she watched as more Narutos emerged from the river. They charged as one and dog piled on Tsunade, intending to get the bells. The Narutos were surprised when they found no Tsunade beneath them. "She must have used henge," a clone said. Chaos followed as the Narutos attacked one another hoping to find Tsunade. "It was you. You smell like Tsunade-sensei, it's not me." "It was Kawarimi, you idiot," Tsunade shouted as she stepped out from the bushes. The Narutos all turned to look at her. "Know your jutsus well, or they will be used against you." The Narutos charged at her again. This time though, she was more than prepared. She punched the ground, causing sizable pieces of earth to fly up and hit the attacking Naruto clones, making them disappear in puffs of smoke. The real Naruto continued and threw a punch at Tsunade. She caught the punch and swung Naruto around so that his back was to her. "Why are genins nowadays so weak?" she stated. "Brats like you deserve a good spanking." She then extended her arm and delivered what looked to be a powerful spank to Naruto's ass, causing him to fly across the field because of its strength. "Shit," Naruto said while clutching his now sore ass. From the nearby trees, Sasuke and Sakura winced as they saw the recent attack that must have hurt a lot, they thought. Seeing an opening, Sasuke pulled a string he was holding, launching a barrage of kunai at Tsunade. He smirked when he saw the kunai hit their mark but frowned when Tsunade's form poofed and turned into a log. "What are you doing all the way over here, Sasuke-kun?" Tsunade asked after appearing behind Sasuke. Sasuke dodged the finger that intended to poke him on the head and swung out his leg to kick Tsunade's side. Tsunade caught the kick however and threw Sasuke into the open plain. "Your taijutsu is pretty good," Tsunade commented. Sasuke responded by throwing 3 shuriken at her. Tsunade caught the shuriken on one finger and blocked the kick that was aimed at her head that followed. Sasuke followed up with a backhand that was easily ducked and then a straight punch. Tsunade responded by tapping Sasuke's wrist, therefore cancelling the attack, which was followed by a light palm strike on Sasuke's body which sent him flying. After being hit, Sasuke quickly started making hand seals Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu. The ball of flame headed for a slightly surprised Tsunade, who in response to the attack, punched the ground hard, causing a shield of earth to rise up and block the incoming flames. She felt a presence behind her and found Naruto, apparently recovered from his earlier mishap and charging at her once again. He threw 3 kunai at her. The same thing won't work twice, she thought, wary of the kunai cage bunshin combo, and proceeded to step to the side, intending to avoid the kunai completely. Something else happened though, as the clones dropped the henge when they were a few feet from her and charged. the real Naruto following closely behind. The two clones to her left and right threw a left hook and a right sweep respectively. She blocked the attacks with one arm and leg each, then found the third clone a few inches from grabbing the bell. Tsunade planted a knee in the clone's face and made it disappear. She then delivered a punch to the clone on her left and elbowed the clone to her right, causing them to disappear. This left the real Naruto, who tried to hit Tsunade with a thrust kick aimed at her midsection. Tsunade caught the kick, but then Naruto threw a smoke bomb aimed at her face. The smoke bomb exploded on the rock behind her and, though not on target, successfully created a smokescreen. From within the smokescreen, Tsunade felt a kunai fly by her, slightly causing a tear on her suit. She quickly ran out of the smokescreen and emerged to find Sakura, who immediately threw a kunai at her. She deflected the kunai, but suddenly dodged as she saw a kunai to seemingly appear out of nowhere and fly by her cheek, causing a small scratch. Onki, she thought. Sakura proceeded to throw another kunai. Tsunade looked at the thrown kunai and saw another kunai slightly trailing underneath the first. She deflected both kunai this time and blocked a kick from Sakura. Bring. The sound echoed throughout the field as the clock indicating the time limit signaled the end of the test. She gathered the 3 jonin in front of the 3 logs. I see that you were unab. She trailed off as she reached down to her waist to get said bells, only to find nothing. Looking for this, sensei? Naruto stated with a victorious tone while raising the 2 bells in question. Surprise showed on Tsunade's face. When did you? She started that kunai. She thought, replaying the part where she deflected the 2 kunai thrown by Sakura. Hee. I transformed myself into one of the kunai Sakura-chan was holding and took the bells just right after the alarm rang. Naruto declared with a huge grin on his face. Well Naruto, you have 2 bells, who will you give the other 2? Tsunade asked. Naruto did not bother to waste time thinking. I'll give to Sakura-chan of course, if she didn't help me, we would have failed. Naruto declared as he handed the bell to Sakura, who blushed a bit at the compliment even though it was from Naruto. This left Sasuke. As you know, the one who doesn't get a bell is tied to the log, Tsunade stated. And so we find Sasuke tied to the middle log and slightly squirming due to the discomfort of his bindings. Tsunade stepped a few meters from the log and pulled out a kunai. Ninja risk their lives for the mission, correct? Sakura and Naruto nodded. The kunai flew from Tsunade's hand, landing dangerously close to Sasuke's face. What are you doing, sensei? Shouted Naruto. Tsunade ignored the statement. You will encounter many life-threatening situations in the field, she said as another kunai flew from her fingers and landed closely to the right side of Sasuke's face. Naruto and Sakura proceeded to step forward but were stopped in their tracks. Don't help him, Tsunade shouted. Make one move to help him and the both of you fail as well. And another kunai flew from her hand and landed with a thud right between Sasuke's legs, near his groin. If Sasuke wasn't afraid before, one could see that he was now shown by the many beads of sweat running down his face. Even Sakura looked shocked. This was also expressed by her alter ego. What the hell is that bitch doing? Her inner personality shouted. She looked at Tsunade, who had a very evil-looking grin on her face. Maybe I should end the Uchiha bloodline here. She wondered out loud while tapping the handle of the kunai she was holding against her chin. Sakura almost fainted at that remark. She can't do that. Sakura thought. The next one won't miss. Tsunade stated coolly and threw the kunai, intending to hit Sasuke for real this time. Sakura closed her eyes, expecting to hear the meaty thud of kunai meeting flesh, and she did, but when she opened her eyes, she was extremely surprised to find Naruto in front of Sasuke, arms crossed with a kunai lodged in one of them. Why did you interfere? Tsunade shouted with steel in her voice. I don't care about repeating another year. I don't care even if it is Sasuke Teme. I can't just stand by and watch a fellow Konoha shinobi be harmed. Naruto shouted with determination. Tsunade proceeded to step towards Naruto, stopping in front of him and poked him in the chest, sending him crashing into Sasuke, who was tied to the log. Out in the field, you will be forced to make harsh decisions. Are you prepared for that? Tsunade asked. She then raised a kunai in front of Naruto and brought it down. Shit. I can't move, Naruto thought as he closed his eyes and prepared for death. Wondering why he did not feel anything, he opened his eyes and was shocked to see Sakura in front of him, trying vainly to stop Tsunade's attack. "Sakura-chan!" Naruto shouted. So strong, Sakura thought as she struggled to hold Tsunade's attack, her feet making indentations in the earth from the force of Tsunade's attack. She then saw Tsunade's hand move and prepared for the inevitable. She could not help but stare when she felt a hand ruffle the hair on her head. "You all pass," Tsunade said with a smile on her face. Sakura's knees gave way and she collapsed. Naruto and Sasuke stared agape. "Oi, oi, what do you mean by that?" Naruto shouted. "It's just as I said, you all pass," she said matter-of-factly. "There will be missions that will endanger the lives of you and your teammates. Nothing is more important to a team than teamwork. This test was meant to test if you were capable of teamwork and you pass with flying colors." Sakura sighed in relief, then she started to giggle, which after a few moments, turned into laughter, and Naruto joined in while Sasuke just smiled a bit. "Naruto, come here," Tsunade said. Naruto did so and was startled when Tsunade grabbed his arm, pulled out the kunai, eliciting a shout of pain from Naruto. "Be quiet," Tsunade ordered, which caused Naruto to do so. She then raised a hand that was glowing with chakra to the wound, healing it completely. Naruto stared at the spot where his wound had been with awe. "Anyo-sa, Anyo-sa, are you going to teach me that, sensei?" Naruto asked excitedly. "We'll see," Tsunade responded. She untied Sasuke and once again faced the three genin. "As congratulations for passing the exam, how about I treat you to some dinner?" "Yosha. Let's have ramen," Naruto exclaimed. "Ramen sounds good," Sakura stated, while Sasuke just nodded his head. Later, they had just finished eating ramen and were about to leave. "Well, I'm off to the jonin meeting. Team 7 starts its duties tomorrow," Tsunade said and left. Sasuke also left, giving a grunt as a sign of goodbye, leaving Sakura and Naruto. "Want me to walk you home, Sakura-chan?" Naruto said with glee. "No need to, Naruto, I'll be alright," Sakura said while pumping a fist in the air. "Oh," Naruto replied. "Okay then. See you tomorrow, Sakura-chan." And with that, Naruto turned to leave but stopped when a hand clutched his shoulder. He turned around to find that it was Sakura. "What's wrong, Sakura-chan?" "Thanks for teaching me a valuable lesson back there, Naruto," she said, after which, she gave him a quick peck on the cheek before running off. Naruto touched the spot that Sakura beeped. "I was just beeped by Sakura-chan," Naruto thought. The look on his face said that he should be happy, but he did not feel it. Deciding that pondering such a thing would just give him a headache, he decided to just dwell on the fact that Sakura beeped him and went home, a wide grin on his face. At the jonin meeting, Tsunade stared at the odd man who was speaking up front. "I would like to welcome our latest addition, Tsunade, as the man who was known as Maida Guy. It is such a wonder to be able to reach the rank of jonin while still in the springtime of youth," Guy shouted while shedding tears. The door of the bar swung open and in walked a man reading a book. "Kakashi, my eternal rival. How was your team?" Kakashi looked up from his book and replied, "They failed, another disappointment," before going back into his book. "Who did you get for your team?" A woman to Tsunade's left asked. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. Yuhi Kurenai. This chain smoker beside me is Asuma," she said while gesturing at Asuma, who raised his mug and said, "Yo. Tsunade." She responded and took a sip of her sake. "My team looks promising. I got Uzumaki, Uchiha and Haruno." Kurenai nodded. "Well, I got the Hyuga heiress, an Inuzuka, and an Aburame." Tsunade nodded and then they looked at Asuma. "I got the Ino-Shika-Cho combination," he stated and then took a swig of his mug. "This year's genins are filled with all sorts of monsters, aren't they?" Kurenai asked Asuma, who nodded in affirmation. Seeing that nobody else was going to say anything, Tsunade proceeded to drink the rest of her sake. Later, Naruto was about to go to sleep when he heard a rapping at his door. Who could it be at this hour? He opened the door to find Tsunade, who has holding a sake bottle in one hand with a huge grin on her face. "I'm back," she said, obviously drunk, and then collapsed. Naruto shook his head and made a clone to help carry her to the bed. "Man, you're pretty heavy," he said. "Was hat? Are you saying that I'm fat?" Tsunade angrily replied and moved to punch Naruto, but since she was plastered it came out as more of a tap on his cheek. After laying her on the bed, Naruto dispelled the clone and breathed a sigh of relief. At least you got home okay, he said out loud. Tsunade gazed at Naruto through half-closed eyes. Nawaki? After seeing Tsunade's eyes open, Naruto moved closer to see if she was awake but soon found himself nearly suffocating as Tsunade enveloped Naruto in a hug. Nawaki, I'm sorry, so sorry. Tsunade repeated as she sobbed heavily. I couldn't save you, I. Sob? Tsunade stuttered. I'm so useless, and cried on Naruto's shoulder. Seeing that Tsunade was crying, Naruto clumsily returned the hug, rubbing Tsunade's back all the while in assurance. It was after a bit that Tsunade calmed down. Naruto tried to adjust his position to leave but found that he could not because of Tsunade's strength. I hope she doesn't misunderstand this in the morning, Naruto thought before drifting off into sleep in Tsunade's arms. Ninmu, mission. Tsunade sighed as she looked at her team who was gathered at the bridge. It has been a long and very stressful week. Day 1 Team 7 was supposed to gather at the bridge. Sasuke arrived first, followed by Sakura who gave an excessively cheerful Ohayu. Sasuke-kun. Followed by a glomp. Sasuke gave an irritated grunt as a reply. Ohayu Sakura-chan. Sasuke-teme. A weak voice called out to them. The two turned to the source of the voice, finding something wrong since said voice was supposed to be higher in terms of volume. They were greeted with the sight of a battered Naruto. He was sporting bruises and a black eye. Naruto, what happened to you? Sakura asked, not because she liked him or anything, just that because he was her teammate. Nothing, Naruto replied even though it was obvious that there was something. Seeing that Naruto wasn't going to say anything, Sakura decided to drop the matter. Tsunade gave a wave as she joined the trio. Yo, Ohayu, the three genin replied. We have a mission today, she said while holding up a scroll. It's from a Mr. Miyagi. Yosha. Naruto cried excitedly upon hearing the words mission. I bet it's a really cool mission. Let's do it. His other two teammates looked at him, obviously not sharing his enthusiasm. Tsunade frowned at Naruto, who thankfully did not notice. She nearly blushed after recalling the events that transpired this morning. Earlier this morning, she was having a dream about her getting together with the undeniably hottest ninja during her time, Hayabusa Ryu. Oh, Ryu-sama. Tsunade cooed as she gazed upon the masked visage of Ryu. Tsunade-chan. He responded, then slowly pulled his mask off, revealing a face that would, in her time, make any kunoichi melt on the spot. The truth is, Tsunade-chan, ever since I saw you, there has been this feeling I can't stop. It's the feeling of wanting to be close to you. Ryu said huskily, all the while caressing Tsunade's cheek. To which Tsunade responded by placing her hand over his. Oh Ryu-sama, she said excitedly. She then moved in to capture his lips. Meanwhile, Naruto had just woken up to the sight of approaching lips. He was about to shout, but Tsunade's lips covering his remedied that. Naruto's eyes became the size of golf balls, but he slowly started to return the beep. I don't really understand, but it feels kinda nice, he thought. He immediately retracted this thought, however, as he saw that Tsunade was in the process of waking up. Panicking, he quickly tried to break the beep and escape from Tsunade's vice-like embrace, but it was useless. Tsunade's superhuman strength made sure of that. It was at this point that Tsunade woke up and she quickly noticed two things. Naruto was in her bed and that he was beeping her or vice versa, but that was not the point. Quickly breaking the beep, she grabbed Naruto and threw him across the room, causing him to crash into the nearby wall. After recovering, Naruto felt a chill go down his spine as he saw an extremely furious Tsunade. Veins were popping up on the side of her forehead and she was emitting a red battle aura. Naruto, no, she started, then looked up. Baka. After which mayhem followed. An old man in a nearby apartment. Damn kids, he grumbled, then immediately went back to sleep. Back to the present. This the genin team Miyagi asked for. The old man, who was dressed in a simple shirt and short combo, asked Tsunade. Hi, I'm there, sensei. Tsunade. She replied with a bow. You have a task for us? She asked. The three genin had serious expression on their face. What could it be? Sakura thought. I bet it's a super cool mission. Naruto thought excitedly while slightly jumping up and down, bubbling with energy. Finally, a chance to test my skills. Now if only these two were not here, Sasuke thought. Miyagi led them to a house. Here is where Miyagi have you do tasks, as he gestured to the house. Wait here while Miyagi get tools, the old man said. He came out a few minutes later while carrying a bucket, some rags and a brush. You, he said while gesturing at Sasuke, you follow Miyagi. He then led Sasuke to a fence. He put the bucket down, then opened the bucket, revealing it to be paint. He then dipped the brush in the paint and handed it to Sasuke, who looked at it questioningly. First you paint fence, Miyagi said after a moment of silence. Sasuke suppressed a face fault, then grudgingly started to get to work, sloppily making strokes on the fence. Miyagi approached him again and said, all in wrist, Miyagi said while grabbing the brush, up, down, long stroke, and proceeded to paint the fence. Up, down, he repeated. He then handed the brush to Sasuke, who attempted to imitate what Miyagi had done. Bend your wrist. Downstroke, you bend. See? Good, Miyagi cryptically offered and then left, leaving a grumbling Sasuke. Oh, and don't forget to breathe, Miyagi decided to add as an afterthought. Miyagi came back a little later and pointed to Sakura. Your turn. She was led into the house and handed here two objects that looked like bongos. Anyo, Miyagi-san, what do I do with these? Sakura asked, raising said objects in question. Funny you should ask, Sakura-san. Miyagi then stepped over to Sakura, grabbed one of the bongos, and placed it on the floor. Right circle, left circle, he said while moving the sanders in circular motions. Whole floor, right circle, left circle. Don't forget to breathe. We're supposed to sand this entire floor. Go to hell you old fart, was shouted by inner Sakura. The real Sakura, however, restrained herself, and all that can be seen from her was that her left eyebrow was twitching. Knowing that it would be useless to complain, she grabbed the sanders and got to work. Naruto had been patiently waiting for his task and was relieved to see Miyagi come out of the house and approach him. He was not only bored, but being alone with Tsunade was kind of awkward for him right now. All right, Miyagi started. Your turn. He then led Naruto to a room with a big square object in the middle that was covered by a cloth. I have most important task for you, he said, then removed the cloth, revealing an onyx table. Naruto was amazed, although why somebody would make a table out of onyx was beyond him. He could not help but be captured by its beauty and depth. Deciding to feel it, he ran a hand across its dark surface, finding it to be rather dusty. Miyagi then applied some kind of chemical on the rag and then placed the rag on the table. Now Naruto-san, do this. And then he made a circular motion with his right hand, after which was followed by his left hand that was also holding a rag. Do you understand, Naruto-san? Wax on. Motion with right hand. Wax off. And then followed by the left hand. Do this until table is sparkling. And with that, he left. Naruto only groaned in response. This is what I'm supposed to do. He asked himself. Maybe I'll get something better if I finish faster, he thought, and then made a cage bunshin to help him in his task. It's going to be a long day, Naruto thought before getting to work. Day 2. Tsunade looked at the assembled genin. Today, we will be figuring out your weaknesses and how to correct them. But first, a little exercise. She then approached a tree and started to walk up its side, eventually coming to a stop and hanging upside down from a branch. Naruto's eyes widened. How'd you do that, sensei? He questioned excitedly while jumping up and down. His companions. Well, Sakura was surprised while Sasuke maintained a blank expression. Tsunade dropped from the branch and landed on 2 feet. She then threw 3 kunai near the 3 genin's feet. Channel Chakra into your feet. Then run up the tree. Remember, too much or too little will result in not sticking to the tree. Mark the spot that you reached before falling. Begin. It was a few hours later and Sasuke and Naruto made repeated attempts to climb the tree. Naruto made a mark with his kunai and once again fell to the ground. Kuso. I gotta do this if I want to become the next Hokage, he thought. He then looked up and saw Sakura, who was already sitting on the highest branch on the tree. Good work, Sakura, you can take a break now. The rest of you, continue? Tsunade said. It seems she has unbelievable Chakra control but little stamina and Chakra capacity. I'll wonder if, she thought as she watched Sakura take a seat at the base of a nearby tree. Sakura was panting when she plopped down at the base of the tree. She looked up to see Naruto approach her. Nay. Sakura-chan, do you have any hints on how to do it? He whispered. Sakura seemed to consider this for a moment before replying. You only have to concentrate and find the right amount of chakra, Naruto. Thanks Sakura-chan, he replied before going back to the tree. It was almost night time when the two had reached the top of the trees that they were trying to climb. Naruto and Sasuke dropped to the ground. Good work everyone, said Tsunade. That's all for today, dismissed, and so the day ended. Day 3. Tsunade looked at the aftermath with a twitching eye. How did it turn out like this? She thought while slapping a hand on her face. A blue-haired teenager was hauling what looked to be severed tentacles into a nearby trash can. Sakura was mopping a grimy substance from the floor, while Naruto and about 5 cage bunchins were sweeping small pieces of what looked to be skin and other parts that could not be identified. Sakura spoke up. I can't believe that such things existed, she said, then shuddered, thinking back to the creature they encountered. It was notable that there were several tears on her clothing. Yeah, replied Naruto, as he recalled the events that led up to the current situation. They had been asked to report to Amiko Mido for their mission that day. Turns out that the mission was to arrange and clean out said woman's storage house. The house was of pretty decent size and had been located in the outskirts of Konoha. They met with said woman and were led to the separate storage house and started to move objects around at the directions of Miko. Nay Sakura-chan, what do you think this is? Naruto said while holding a small seal case with an intricate engraving on the cover in his hand. Sakura looked over Naruto's shoulder and stared at the seal case. It's beautiful, she said in awe and reached out to touch the seal case. She never got to touch it though, because Naruto whipped around, nearly hitting Sakura in the process, and called out to Sasuke, Oi! Oi, look at this, Sasuke! He shouted excitedly. Sasuke just continued doing his task and replied, Shut up Dobi. Naruto was about to shout something back, was cut off as he felt a chill go down his spine. The temperature in the room dropped considerably as Sasuke felt a chill go down his spine and watched as a shape rose from the ground. The shape turned out to be a humanoid and had toe horns on its head. Its face possessed 2 slanted eyes and a mouth that sported rows of sharp teeth. Most noticeable, however, were the many writhing tentacles attached to its back. It's been so long since one of us has been summoned, the creature stated in a demonic voice. So your target, this Teamy, is chimed with manic glee. The tentacles on the monster's back attacked towards Sasuke's direction. Sasuke immediately pulled out a kunai and started hacking the many tentacles that were attacking him, scattering the appendages on the floor. There were too many, however, and Sasuke soon found himself with his arms and legs bound. Where were Sakura and Naruto during this period of dire need? Well, it turns out that the tentacles seemed to be able to operate without the monster having to command them to. While the tentacles were busy with Sasuke, the main body was dealing with the duo of Sakura and Naruto. Naruto flew backwards into a stack of boxes due to a strong punch from the monster. Sakura threw a shuriken which only bounced off the monster's surprisingly hard skin. The monster moved with a speed that belied its size, and grabbed Sakura in a firm grip. It brought its face closer to Sakura's. You look like a tasty little thing, it said, licking its lips in anticipation. Get your filthy hands off of Sakura-chan, was shouted as Naruto, or should I say Naruto's, burst from the pile of boxes and started to head for the monster. The monster used 2 of its tentacles and batted away the offending cage bunchins, and then used 1 tentacle to grab the real Naruto and hold him up by the neck. It was at this point that Sakura noticed Sasuke, who was struggling in his bonds, but what shocked her was that he had been stripped down to his boxers. In any other time she would be drooling, but then it dawned on her what the monster planned to do. Thankfully though, a kunai cut through the air and embedded itself in the monster's eye. The monster turned to the source and found Tsunade, disgust clearly etched on her features. What the hell do you think you're doing to my students? Tsunade shouted. The monster pulled out the kunai from its eye and said, Looks like another tasty one has appeared, and then straightened itself. I'm going to enjoy doing yo, it said manically, then launched its tentacles at Tsunade. Tsunade jumped and threw several kunai, severing the tentacles that held Sasuke and Naruto. The 2 mentioned quickly recovered and then started attacking the monster. Tsunade landed beside the monster, who was busy fending off Sasuke and Naruto. Tsunade grabbed its arm and pushed near the elbow joint, breaking its arm, causing it to howl in pain and effectively releasing Sakura. She maintained her hold on the arm and swung, throwing the monster out of the storage houses and into the courtyard of the house. The monster landed in a heap and righted itself. It roared and once again launched tentacles at the approaching group of Tsunade, Sasuke and Naruto. Tsunade threw a punch that tore into the monster's thick hide, followed by Naruto, who used his cage bunshin and tipped the monster over. The Naruto clones then launched the monster into the air where Sasuke was already making hand seals. Kaiten. Ryuka no Jutsu. The stream of fire met the floating body and the monster met the flame and gave one final scream before dying. Sakura ran out of the storage house just in time to see the burnt corpse of the monster hit the ground. After placing what he swept up into the trash can, Naruto turned to an approaching and fully clothed Sasuke. "By the way, Sasuke." He then paused, a grin developing on his face. "I swear I saw you smile when that thing held you. Is there something we should know about?" he said, then giggled. "Shut up, Dobi," Sasuke replied. He then turned to an equally shocked Sakura. "Sasuke-kun, is that why you?" Sakura trailed off. Was the only response she got as Sasuke started to walk away from the Mido house and back towards Konoha proper. "Anyway, since this mission is officially over, we will be heading back to Konoha now," Tsunade said. "I'm sorry for the trouble and thank you again," a beaming Miko said. End day 3. After that mission, Tsunade started to notice a pattern. After that, it was that mangaka who wanted to make a manga about Naruto. Then after that, crazy guy that used strings. What the hell has happened to Konoha? Tsunade thought to herself, because after meeting the people that now resided within Konoha, she wondered if Konoha was better off at war. Now here she was, about to receive what might be another mission involving some nutcase. She and Team 7 were waiting for their assignment when Naruto spoke up. "Oi-Jai-chan." While pointing at the Hokage, "Give us a tougher mission. The ones you've been giving us so far are not fit of the future Hokage. Show some respect when in Hokage-sama's presence," Sakura shouted before her fist met Naruto's head. "So, you want a tougher mission?" Sandame said after taking a puff of his pipe. "This should be suitable enough," he said while handing Tsunade a scroll. "C rank. All you have to do is escort Tazuna-san back to his home in Wave Country." After saying that, an obviously drunk man entered. "This is the team that's gonna be escorting me?" he slurred, then brought his face closer to Naruto's. "They're just a bunch of snot-nosed brats," he said. "Nani?" Naruto shouted after seeing the look on Tazuna's face. "Anyway, we will be taking this mission," Tsunade said while restraining Naruto. "All right, meet at the East Gate in 30 minutes, Tazuna said. "Hi," Team 7 replied. "Hanashi, talk." Team 7 was quiet as they walked along the trail to Wave Country. They were walking single file. Sasuke in front, Naruto in the middle, while Tsunade, Tazuna and Sakura brought up the rear. "Nay, Tazuna-san, what kind of place is Wave Country?" Naruto asked. Tazuna took a swig of sake then replied, "Well, it used to be a pretty nice and quiet place. Cool winters and slightly hot summers." Pausing for a moment and taking a swig from his sake, then continuing, "It was actually very nice until that bastard Gadu came," he said angrily. "He's responsible for the sad state that our country is in now. The people are oppressed, a lot of people are suffering. This is where the bridge comes in," he said. "The bridge is the critical factor which will allow us to gain independence from Gadu," he finished explaining. "That's what you people are for. Make sure you guard me and my workers well. You can leave it to us," Naruto replied and thumped his chest in a gesture of pure confidence. "Are you kids really gonna be able to protect us?" Tazuna slurred. "Why do you keep doubting us, Tazuna-oken?" Naruto asked and then placed his hand on his hips and stood haughtily. "There, nothing to worry about. You're with Konoha's future Hokage." Tazuna just gave him a blank look then said, "Huh? I dunno what you're talking about, and what's this Hokage thing you saying?" Tsunade spoke up. "Hokage is the title that we bestow upon the head of the village. As you know, the land is divided into 5 major countries: stone, fire, wind, water and lighting." Tazuna nodded. "Well, each country supposedly has its own ninja village which is run by a kage. Each kage is responsible for the welfare of his village," she finished explaining. Sakura and Naruto's thoughts drifted towards their kage. That lame old geezer didn't look that great, inner Sakura thought. Definitely not that great, Naruto thought as he recalled that the times that the old man had fallen prey to his BP no jutsu. Both of you just doubted Hokage-sama right now, didn't you? Tsunade deadpanned. Sakura and Naruto quickly shook their heads. No, we didn't, sensei, they replied. Okay then. Tsunade replied and urged the group onwards. The team continued walking until Naruto suddenly stopped. There's something there, he said, then threw a kunai into a nearby bush. Hearing it hit something, Naruto immediately went to investigate, only to find a poor bunny stuck to a trap. Naruto immediately broke into tears and started hugging the bunny close to him. I'm sorry, Bunny-chan, wailed while rubbing the bunny up and down his cheeks. The group bisweated while Naruto, finally clamming down, laid down the bunny and let it go. The group decided not to comment on it and continued their march. The group passed a small puddle of water that Tsunade looked at strangely but continued walking nonetheless. A few seconds later a head rose from the small puddle of water. The head then left the puddle accompanied by the body and then made a dash for Tsunade, followed by another shape that was connected to it by a chain. Tsunade turned around to see the approaching and gasped in surprise as the chain wrapped around her. The team watched in horror as their sensei was ripped apart. Tsunade's sensei. Naruto and Sakura shouted. One down, one of the masked figures said. The two figures then dashed at Naruto, intent on making him experience the same fate as their earlier victim. Naruto only watched frozen as the demon brothers came at him. I can't move, Naruto thought as he watched the two approach. A foot lashed and kicked the attackers, knocking them aside. Naruto saw that his savior was none other than Sasuke. A shuriken thrown by Sasuke caught the demon brothers' chain and then nailed it to a tree. Che, Guzu said. Something clicked and the chain separated itself from the gauntlets on the brothers' arms. Deciding that dealing with the target would be faster, the two headed for Tazuna. I have to do it, Sakura chanted mentally as she watched the two ninja approach. Stay back, Tazuna-san, she shouted as she placed herself between Tazuna and his attackers. Sasuke appeared in front of Sakura with a kunai ready and watched the incoming clawed hand of one of the demon brothers. The attack never came as Tsunade suddenly appeared in front of Sasuke and placed the two attackers in a headlock. Sorry for the wait, Tsunade said. She did not see one of the brothers make a flicking gesture that sent a barely visible needle right into the side of Tazuna's neck. Tsunade tied up the two jonin and spoke to them. Who sent you? She asked sternly. She was met with a defiant stare which soon turned into a blank and lifeless one. Tsunade placed two fingers onto the neck of the captive. Detecting no pulse, she threw the bodies into a nearby bush and went back to her team. She stopped in front of Naruto and looked down at him. I'm disappointed in you, Naruto-kun, she said. Yo, Sasuke called out as he approached Naruto. Are you hurt, scaredy cat? He said with a confident tone. Naruto seethed and silently swore, next time, I'll prove that I'm the better ninja, then followed after the group. It was after a few minutes that the group noticed Tazuna walk slightly weak. They first attributed it to the sake until Tazuna eventually collapsed. Tsunade immediately placed a hand on his forehead. He's burning up, she stated and performed a scan of his body. Poison, she concluded. She placed down her pack and started pulling out supplies. Sasuke. Get me some water. Naruto. Gather all the sleeping badges that we have with us. Sakura. Come here and help me. She barked out. The genin moved to comply with her orders. Naruto and Tsunade laid Tazuna down on the assembled sleeping bags. Tsunade handed 2 vials and a small cup to Sakura. Mix these two, she ordered, and Sakura started to work. Chakra then became visible on Tsunade's hand and she ran it across Tazuna's body, found it. She thought as she located the most vital spot. Good, it hasn't spread too far, then pushed her hand down, causing Tazuna to thrash about wildly. Hold him down, she told Naruto. Naruto hastily made a cage bunshin which assisted him in holding Tazuna down while Tsunade performed the procedure. Sasuke returned, a canteen full of extra water ready. Tsunade then raised her hand and something of a dark substance trailed with it. She dropped the substance into a nearby wooden dish that had water in it courtesy of Sasuke. Sakura, have him drink the mixture. Sakura raised the cup, filled the mixture to Tazuna's lips, and his face seemed to ease. Naruto then took a spare cloth from his pack and soaked it with water from his own canteen. Wringed the excess water out, then placed the cloth on Tazuna's forehead. "Is Tazuna-san going to be okay?" Sakura asked. Tsunade smiled and then said, "He'll be fine," she stated as she proceeded to clean up the stuff she put out. "I was able to extract the poison and whatever traces of it should be destroyed by the mixture you prepared," Tsunade said. She then addressed the 3 genin. "We'll be camping here for tonight." The genin nodded in acknowledgement. Night had fallen and Tsunade had decided to take first watch. After throwing a stick into the fire, she looked around and noticed that there were only 3 sleeping forms on the ground. Where did that Baka go? Baka, meaning Naruto, who was currently missing from their campsite. She stood and followed his tracks to a nearby clearing which had a river running near it. She was a bit surprised at what she saw. There stood Naruto with his jacket off. He is in a loose stance and hasn't noticed Tsunade's presence yet. Some kind of signal went off and Naruto flew into a dance of punches and kicks. Tsunade could tell that he did not excel in taijutsu and also some of the moves were done wrong, but in each and every subtle movement and hard strike, she could feel the raw power that is waiting to be unleashed. "Your form needs work," she said, indicating her presence to Naruto. Naruto fell on his butt before throwing the final kick to the kata. "It's none of your business," he said with his back turned to Tsunade. "Believe it or not, it is. I'm your sensei," she said, poking Naruto's forehead, holding back her strength as she did not want to injure Naruto. "As if you'd know better," Naruto said while rubbing his lightly sore forehead. "As a matter of fact, I do," Tsunade replied with a confident tone. She then walked towards the river and stood upon its surface, shocking Naruto a great deal. She then blurred into a complex series of motion that ended with a somersault and landing on the surface of the river, causing several ripples to form from underneath Tsunade. Naruto stared agape and wide-eyed. Tsunade waved a hand in front of Naruto to see if anybody was home. Naruto recovered and asked, Anyo-sa, how'd you do that, sensei?" "Do what?" Tsunade asked as if she did not know what he was talking about. That water walking thing," Naruto said excitedly. Nay, can you teach me that?" "Since I'm in a good mood I'll teach you," Tsunade replied casually. "Yosha!" Naruto shouted. "Okay, listen carefully," Tsunade said, getting Naruto's full attention. "First, gather Chakra in your feet, then," Tsunade demonstrated by walking on the surface of the water again. "Balance the amount of Chakra released with your body weight and you will float," and swept her hands out, like so. Naruto nodded in understanding. "All right, gather Chakra in your feet and balance the amount released with my body weight, right?" "Right," Tsunade replied. Naruto made a hand seal and then proceeded to try and walk on the water, only to fall into the river. The river was not that deep, so it did not make any noisy splashing sounds due to Naruto's failed attempts. Tsunade watched as Naruto slowly got the hang of the water walking technique. "He's already figured out this much," she thought, shocked at how fast Naruto was able to learn the technique. "I think I'm getting used to it," Naruto said as his feet slowly rose from being ankle deep in the river to resting on the surface. "I did it," Naruto exclaimed as he did some back flips and cartwheels on the surface of the water. "Oi Naruto!" Tsunade called out. "Come here, I have to talk to you about something." Naruto approached Tsunade and asked, "What's wrong, sensei?" Tsunade looked Naruto straight in the eye and said, "I know." "You know?" Naruto exclaimed in shock. "About what?" Tsunade fell over. She then stood up and coughed. "I know about your secret," she stated in a serious tone. Naruto suddenly started sweating heavily. "WHWH, what secret are you talking about, sensei?" he stuttered out in a nervous tone. "That you are the container for the Kyuubi," Tsunade replied. This new information hit Naruto like a punch from his beloved Sakura-chan, painfully. "How did you find out?" he asked with a weak tone. "Sarutobi-sensei told me," she said while approaching Naruto. "He told me about how you were hated by almost the entire village and that not a single child was allowed by their parents to play with you." "Oh, so you hate me now too, don't you?" Naruto replied, his voice cracking with tears threatening to burst from his eyes. "No, I don't." Naruto was then surprised as he was enveloped in a hug. "I think you're a hero, Naruto-kun. It's just that most of those fools in the village do not understand," Tsunade said while rubbing Naruto's back. Sensei. Naruto croaked before returning the hug and proceeding to cry on Tsunade's shoulder. After a few minutes Tsunade stood up followed by Naruto. Anyo-sa, Naruto. Tsunade started. Nani? Naruto asked. May I see the seal? Then Tsunade quickly added, but you don't have to show me if you don't want to. It's all right. I don't mind, Naruto replied as he proceeded to take his pants and jacket off, leaving him clad in his boxers and shirt. In the bushes was an extremely curious Sakura who had just gone to answer the call of nature, stumbled upon Naruto and Tsunade's talk. What are they doing, she thought as she observed what appeared to be Naruto taking his jacket off. Don't tell me there, she presumed after seeing Naruto take off his pants, revealing plain white boxer shorts. They are, she once again presumed. Sakura's curiosity was triggered again as she heard Tsunade say, "It's so big," while what Tsunade meant the size of the seal, Sakura interpreted it as something different entirely as she could only see Naruto's back. "May I touch it?" was heard by Sakura, causing her to almost scream at the scandalous nature of it all. "Okay," was Naruto's reply. Although she wished that she could get a better angle to see what was going on, she thought that it might give away her position. She decided to have one last look. She vaguely saw Tsunade's hand reach for Naruto's stomach. It was dark so she couldn't tell. What she heard however nearly made her scream. "Ouch!" Naruto cried out. Tsunade panicked slightly. "Sorry, did I hurt you?" she asked. "No, it's okay. The pain will pass," came Naruto's weak reply. Sakura's brain decided that this was too much information and decided to shut down, causing her to faint. Suiku D. Encounter. Sakura. A voice called out to her. "Who's there?" she asked, seeing nobody amid the field of flowers. She looked around and spotted a figure in a clearing. "Sasuke-kun," she stated after approaching and getting a good look at the figure. "Sakura," replied the figure that Sakura presumed to be Sasuke. "I have to tell you something," he stated while turning to face her. "What is it, Sasuke-kun?" But Sakura never got to finish the statement as she was suddenly enveloped by Sasuke's arms. She looked up and was met with Sasuke's deep onyx eyes, which just caused her to melt into his arms further. "Sakura, I've never gotten the chance to tell you this, but I love you," the dream Sasuke said huskily. Sakura almost fainted at those words and was barely able to reply. "I love you too, Sasuke-kun." She then closed her eyes and raised her head in order to beep Sasuke. Surprised that no beep came, she opened her eyes and was greatly surprised to find herself strapped to a chair. Gone was the field of flowers and was replaced by a black environment that had a red moon in the sky. "Sasuke-kun?" Sakura asked the figure in front of her. "What's happening?" she asked fearfully. "In this space called the Tsukiyomi I control everything," the figure stated. "The horizontal," and took a step forward. "The vertical," another step. "But enough about that. Did you think I would like someone with a big forehead like yours?" Sasuke stated with venom. "Now prepare for the ultimate punishment," he said. Then all of a sudden, there seemed to be hundreds of Sasukes, the million Dakopan. After saying which, one of the Sasukes approached Sakura and flicked her forehead, causing her to emit a small cry of flicking, continued with another Sasuke coming to replace the previous one. "Stop, please," Sakura cried out amid the many and continuous flicks to her forehead. "Sakura, Sakura," a voice she could barely hear amidst the cold and cruel laughter of the Sasukes. Sakura woke up all sweaty and came face to face with Naruto, who was giving her a worried look. "Are you okay, Sakura-chan? You looked like you were having a bad dream?" Naruto asked in a worried tone. Sakura gathered her wits and looked around. Seeing no incoming fingers, she let out a long sigh of relief. "Yeah, I'm okay, Naruto. No need to worry," she replied and gave Naruto a genuine smile. "Don't worry, Sakura-chan. If anything tries to hurt you, just call me and I'll be there in a flash," Naruto exclaimed while posing dramatically for effect. "Thank you, Naruto," Sakura meekly replied with a blush on her face. "Oi! We've been delayed long enough. We have to hurry to Wave Country." The voice of a fully recovered Tazuna broke the moment between the two of them. So it was that after a few minutes, Team 7 and their client packed up camp and resumed their march. "We will have to take a boat to Wave Country, then it's just an hour's walk from where we dock to the village proper," Tazuna said as they approached a dock of sorts, where a boat was already waiting. "Oi Tazuna, you're late," The boatman yelled out. We ran into a bit of trouble on the way here, Tazuna replied, but they took care of it, he said and gestured towards Team 7. Are these really ninja? The boatman asked in an annoyed tone. They're just a bunch of smelly-looking brats. Naruto bristled at the comment but was stopped by Tsunade, who replied to the boatman, please give my team a chance to prove ourselves. They are very capable ninja, then continued in a slightly angrier tone. We are already doing a great service by doing this mission at a reduced price since the mission was previously C class but has now been upgraded to a class because of the involvement of enemy ninja. She then turned her back and addressed the two men again. Or would you like us to leave instead? She asked in a challenging tone. Tazuna suddenly hit the boatman on the head. Don't worry you idiot, they're really good. I saw them in action earlier and I swear they were holding back. Now just shut up and get us there. The boatman complied and waited for everyone to get on board. The mist is so thick, Sakura commented. It's usually thick this season. The boatman replied as he continued urging the board onwards. We're almost there, he said. The group disembarked at the nearby shore. You guys better kick Gatu's ass, the boatman exclaimed. Count on it Asan, Naruto replied. I'll meet you at the village Tazuna, the boatman said and once again disembarked. All right, Tazuna replied. He then straightened his pack and turned to address Team 7 inches about an hour's walk north of here is my village, near that is the bridge, and then started walking. Gatu and his men may be lurking about so keep your guard up. Team 7 nodded in unison and proceeded to follow Tazuna through the road. What? Tazuna said irately when Tsunade placed her hand on his shoulder. Tsunade made a ing gesture, indicating for Tazuna to keep quiet then raised her hand, her palm facing Naruto and the others who stopped and then quickly positioned themselves in a triangle around Tazuna. Tsunade stood about a foot away from Tazuna, eyes closed, trying to feel out any possible Chakra signatures. Her eyes suddenly snapped open and she shouted to the others, duck, as she saw a huge blade hurtling towards their position from the thick mist. Strangely however, Tsunade did not duck like the rest of them but instead extended one arm and caught the projectile by the hilt. The force of stopping the sword made Tsunade move back a few inches, leaving small trails on the ground. After recovering, she then used the broad side of the blade to deflect 3 more kunai that came hurtling out of the mist. Quickly spinning around, she then threw the sword like a javelin, causing it to pierce cleanly through one of the nearby trees. Team 7 and Tazuna were surprised as a camouflage cloth dropped down and revealed a figure who was impaled to the tree, a person who suddenly turned into water which spilled all over the ground. Clap, 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 was heard, effectively gathering the entire party's attention. They all turned to the source of the clapping and found a man standing on one of the many branches that the tree where the sword was impaled. Those are some pretty good moves Oju-chan, the man said with a hint of amusement in his voice. Thanks, Tsunade replied with false gratitude as she watched the man drop down and balance himself on the flat side of the huge sword. And may I know who you are? She continued. You haven't heard of me, the man replied with just a hint of surprise in his voice. He then pulled out his sword and held it at his side in a relaxed manner. Then there's no need to introduce myself, as I'll be killing you anyway, he said and then quickly darted towards Tazuna's position, sword in a ready position to slash down and cut Naruto and the others. Clang. The sword was stopped in mid-slash by Tsunade, who used her arm guards to block the humongous sword. You've some monstrous strength there Oju-chan, the man said while trying to press the sword forward. He stopped though when he felt a kunai near his neck. He turned around slightly and saw another Tsunade. It's best not to underestimate me, the second Tsunade replied. The man chuckled a little and then replied, I would say the same thing to you, before suddenly turning into water and falling spilling on the ground. That one's a fake too, Naruto shouted from his position near Tazuna. Too naive, Ju-chan, was heard as Tsunade saw the man appear behind her and swing his sword sideways, intending to cleave her in half. Tsunade ducked under the swing and threw an uppercut in response. It did not connect as the man back flipped and then embedded his sword in the ground. He then used the handle of the sword as a pole and swung himself to kick Tsunade in the stomach. Tsunade flew back and fell into a small lake that was there. Sensei, Naruto and Sakura shouted from their positions. The man withdrew his sword from the ground and ran towards the lake where Tsunade had fallen in. He stopped as he saw that the ground was littered with barely visible makibishi. "It's no use," he said and jumped onto the surface of the water. Makibishi are also known as caltrops. The man scanned the lake for any signs that Tsunade was hiding in it. Tsunade suddenly burst from the water and proceeded to attack the man. She threw a right hook which was hastily blocked by the man using his sword. The man slid across the surface of the water, thrown back by the force of Tsunade's blow. "What the hell?" he thought as he saw the fast approaching Tsunade. He quickly drew his sword and slashed diagonally at Tsunade, who simply backhanded the sword, causing it to fly off and effectively disarm the man. Tsunade then threw a straight punch which to her surprise went through its target. Another Mizu Bunshin. Tsunade thought and quickly tried to retract her hand, but it was too late. The clone started to reform itself into a sphere which then enveloped Tsunade. "You had me worried there for a bit, Ju-chan," the man stated as he held the sphere of water containing Tsunade at an arm's length. "I haven't seen someone with that kind of strength since I fought against the number 1 of us 7. Since you gave me such a good fight, I'll give you the honor of knowing my name. Class B Missing Nin, Momochi Zabuza," he said. Tsunade glared at Zabuza from inside her prison. "Don't worry, I'll get back to you, but first." He then made a handseal Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. "Let me finish that team of yours." From his position, Naruto watched as the clone rose out of the water and made a beeline towards their position. "I have to save Tsunade-sensei," he thought while watching the fast-approaching clone. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and 2 other Narutos appeared by his side. With a battle cry, all 3 Narutos attacked the Zabuza clone at once. The first Naruto clone disappeared in a poof as the Zabuza clone's sword cleaved through it instantly. The other clonect got in close and threw a punch which was easily blocked and was instantly dispelled, courtesy of a well-placed kick. The real Naruto threw a kick aimed at Zabuza's midsection, but said kick was effortlessly grabbed and Naruto found himself looking at Zabuza while upside down. "I see that you can use Kage Bunshin, interesting, but," he started. "Not enough," and threw Naruto back towards Tazuna. Sasuke decided to capitalize on the temporary distraction and threw 5 shuriken towards the Mizu Bunshin. The Mizu Bunshin only continued forward, deftly blocking said shuriken and throwing a punch to Sasuke's gut, sending him flying backwards. "Sasuke-kun!" Sakura shouted. Even Sasuke-kun was easily defeated, she thought. "Kuso," Naruto said and slowly righted himself. "I can't lose here. If I do I won't be able to become Hokage." He directed his gaze at Sasuke. "Sasuke," he shouted. "Lend me your ear for a minute." "Alert," Sasuke said after listening to Naruto's plan. "Here we go," Naruto said and then formed a handseal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A big poof later more than 20 Naruto clones appeared in the area. The mass of Narutos charged forward, kunais drawn and as one, threw the kunai towards the Mizu Bunshin. The Mizu Bunshin blocked the kunai with its sword and then looked up to see the many Naruto clones bearing down on him, kunai drawn. As one, the Naruto clones thrust their kunai downward. The Naruto clones seemed to stay piled on the Mizu Bunshin, but after a few moments, the clones were knocked back and disappeared in puffs of smoke. It was at this point that Sasuke withdrew something from his pack. He unfolded it, revealing said object to be a Fuma Shuriken. He threw the shuriken just when the Naruto clones were knocked away. The Mizu Bunshin deflected the Fuma Shuriken but was destroyed when another Fuma Shuriken appeared out of nowhere and sliced cleanly through it. Zabuza watched in surprise as the second Fuma Shuriken headed for his position. He ducked, avoiding the Fuma Shuriken. It was to his complete surprise though when said Fuma Shuriken poofed, revealing Naruto. Naruto threw 5 kunai at Zabuza Kuso. Zabuza thought as he was forced to release his prison, effectively freeing Tsunade. But it didn't stop there as one of the kunai that flew by turned out to be another Naruto clone. The clone withdrew its own Fuma Shuriken and used its slash at Zabuza, who was forced to block, leaving him open to a bone-breaking punch to the chest. Zabuza swore he almost heard his ribs creak from the punch as he flew back. He righted himself and stood on the surface of the water. Kuso. That hurt like hell, he thought. Drawing his sword, he prepared to face what looked to be one pissed-off Tsunade who was barreling down on him. Zabuza was on the defensive, blocking a kick aimed for his head using the broadside of his blade. He responded by throwing a backhand. Tsunade back flipped away from the attack, scooping up some water along the way and throwing it at Zabuza. Zabuza thought that it was merely an attempt to blind him and darted forward, intent on slicing Tsunade in half. But to his surprise, the small droplets, which were only supposed to make light splashes on his body, made hard impacts, causing him to stop in his tracks. Ninpo. Mizu Dama, water bullets. Tsunade said with a smirk before dodging what would have been a decapitating slice from Zabuza's sword. Zabuza pressed the attack, slashing downwards with his sword, which Tsunade blocked with her armguard and then following up with a kick aimed at Tsunade's side. Tsunade was unable to block the kick and was knocked back a few feet. Quickly recovering, she saw that Zabuza had just finished making the hand seal for Tori. Sweden. Seryuden no Jutsu. And the water near him formed into a dragon which quickly rose and flew at Tsunade. Gotta time this right, Tsunade thought as she saw the incoming water dragon. She then jumped up, corkscrewing, and then extended an arm, the blue glow of Chakra visible on her hand. She severed the head of the water dragon, effectively cancelling the jutsu and shocking all the onlookers, Zabuza included. Zabuza overcame the shock and once again started making hand seals. Tsunade ran towards him, intent on stopping the jutsu. Finishing, Zabuza shouted out, Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu. The water surrounding Zabuza formed into a huge ball and was launched at Tsunade. Tsunade faced the incoming ball of water, a look of determination of her face. This is going to hurt later, she thought, and charged at the incoming projectile. Konoharayu. She started, Getsu Jerry. She then made a spinning kick which sent out what looked to be a crescent of pure Chakra. The crescent sliced through the jutsu and continued towards Zabuza, who received the full brunt of the attack and sent flying into a tree. Tsunade looked up from her kneeling position just in time to see 3 needles impale into the side of Zabuza's head. Who? She started but never got to finish as a person in a mask appeared and approached Zabuza's body. Thank you for the help. The person started. We have been after him for a few years. Kirigakure extends its thanks, and with that, the figure disappeared. Sensei, was said by Naruto after arriving at Tsunade's side. Are you okay? He asked, his voice full of concern. I'm fine, Naruto. Tsunade managed to say in between ragged breaths. You handled yourself pretty well, I'm proud of you, she managed to get out before collapsing on the water and slowly sinking. Sensei, was shouted by all 3 members of Team 7 as they saw Tsunade collapse. Chiyu. Healing. This should be far enough, a masked figure thought as he slowed to a stop. The masked figure carried none other than Momochi Zabuza, who still had 3 needles embedded in the side of his neck. Time to cut off the masked figure said as he pulled a pair of scissors and lowered to Zabuza's face. That won't be necessary, said the surprisingly alive Zabuza said after grabbing the hand which was inches away from his face. Glad to see you're awake, Zabuza-san, the masked figure said after retracting his arm. Zabuza sat up and then proceeded to pull out the needles from the side of his head. Damn that woman, he grumbled. From what I saw, that woman seemed to possess monstrous strength, the masked figure stated as he reached out and retrieved the needles from Zabuza's outstretched hand. You don't need to tell me, I could just barely block her attacks, he said and pulled out the last needle from the side of his neck. He struggled to stand up, using his sword as support, but realized that it was futile when his legs gave and he fell to the ground once again. Zabuza muttered a curse, then directed his gaze at the masked figure. How is it? He asked. Well, from what I see, you sustained heavy injuries from that one jutsu the jonin did, the figure replied. I can see that, Zabuza deadpanned. What I want to know is how long it will take to heal. A week, the masked figure stated simply. I bet it's the same for that woman, isn't it? Zabuza asked from his position on the ground. Next time will be different, Zabuza thought as he and the masked figure jumped through the trees and back to their hideout. No, 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 chanted mentally as she saw the wounded form of her brother lie on the ground. Don't die on me, she shouted while trying to pump more Chakra to heal the deep cut that went across Nawaki's young body. Nawaki slowly opened his eyes and directed his eyes to Tsunade, igniting a spark of hope that he had been saved, but it was not to be so. Sayonara, Oni-chan, Nawaki said with a smile before closing his eyes and growing still. No, Nawaki. She shouted and continued her attempt in reviving Nawaki even though the part of her which was a medic nin already knew it was hopeless. Depleted of Chakra, her body slumped forward and draped itself over Nawaki's body, the previously warm body of her brother, now cold and lifeless. She righted herself and then reached out to caress Nawaki's cheek. Nawaki's suddenly shot open and the supposed corpse turned to face Tsunade. "Why did you let me die, Oni-chan?" it asked with a creepy yet innocent tone to it. Tsunade stood up and backed away from him quickly, her eyes full of fear. "Why did you let me die, Oni-chan?" it asked again. Tsunade could do nothing but wrap her arms around herself as the question was repeated again and again, growing louder until she could not take it anymore and shouted, "Leave me alone." And all went silent. She looked up and saw a person obscured by the darkness that was prevalent in the area. The darkness lifted from the form and revealed it to be Naruto, who stared at Tsunade with blank eyes. "Am I next?" And then the world went white. Tsunade woke up, the terror she had experienced from the nightmare clearly etched on her face. "That dream again," she said to no one in particular as she covered her face with her free hand as the other one felt really numb right now. She lay down again and took note of her surroundings. She seemed to be in a modest one-bed room which had no particular or special objects that would distinguish it from any other part of the house. The door opened and a young girl who looked to be in her early 20s entered, carrying a tray that had some soup and water on it. "Era, you're awake," the woman said before placing the tray on the small table that was next to her bed. "You have been unconscious for over a day now. Those 3 children that were with you were so worried. Especially the orange-clad one," she said with a smile on her face. "Oh, where are my manners?" she said before standing up. "I am Tsunami, daughter of Tazuna," she said with a bow. Tsunade sat up and replied, "Tsunade," and tried to bow from her seated position. Tsunami took the glass of water from the tray and handed it to Tsunade, who received it and said thank you. Down the water went through Tsunade's throat, completely refreshing her. "Where is my team?" Tsunade asked. "Oh, they are probably sleeping in their own rooms, but the one wearing orange insisted to stay with you but was forced to leave after a few choice words from yours truly," she said after placing her hands on her hips and smiling. Tsunade could only smile at Tsunami's gesture. "Thank you," she said. Tsunami smiled. "If there is anything you need, call me," and started towards the door. "By the way, you took a heavy hit back there. I would suggest not moving around too much, it will help you recover faster," and then she shut the door. Sighing in relief, Tsunade lay back on her bed and stared at the ceiling. "That took a lot out of me," Tsunade said as she recalled the 2 jutsus she had used to defeat Zabuza. The silence was broken as an orange blur burst in and positioned itself at Tsunade's side. "Sensei!" The orange blur cried and then proceeded to shake Tsunade, who was too weak to resist at the moment. "Naruto! What are you doing to Tsunade-sensei?" was heard, followed by a strong hit to the head. One unconscious Naruto later and silence was restored. "How are you feeling, sensei?" Sakura asked. "A bit better," Tsunade replied. "I'm sure that Zabuza will be back though." Sakura replied while Sasuke simply listened with interest from the doorway. "Didn't that hunter nin person finish Zabuza off?" "No," Tsunade said. "When placed in certain points, those needles that you saw the hunter nin throw can make the target look unconscious." Tsunade adjusted her position on the bed then continued. "Being a medic nin, such a skill may come in useful during operations in the field as well." "So we can expect them to attack again?" Sasuke asked. "Yeah," Tsunade replied. "So what should we do, sensei?" Sakura asked with worry. Tsunade sighed and then said, "For now, we should rest and recover. We have about a week, we'll use that time to train." "Hi." Sasuke and Sakura replied. "Good." Tsunade replied and lay back down on the bed. "Wake up early, I am going to teach all of you a new technique." Sakura and Sasuke left, dragging an unconscious Naruto with them. Tsunade closed her eyes once again and embraced the darkness that came. Omake. No title yet. Tsunade felt her heart race as the train slowed down and then stopped. "This is my stop," she said to no one in particular. Tsunade felt as if she was walking to her doom when she saw the gates to the school grow larger with her approach. She stopped at the front gate and stomped her foot. "Yosh! It's time for a new beginning," she said with vigor. Said vigor was drained from her as she saw a huge ball of fire sail past her. "How do you like that, Dobie?" was said by a black-haired boy. Tsunade turned to where the fireball appeared to have exploded and found an orange-clad boy in the middle of the crater. "That didn't hurt one bit," was said by the orange figure. "How did he survive that?" was the question running through her head, clearly shocked by the inhuman feat. "That little spark of yours nothing compared to this," and the orange-clothed boy reared back then threw forward. A huge wave of red energy pushed forward and headed for the black-haired boy. Hiohe! And all of a sudden, a wall of ice sprang up in front of the energy, seeming to buckle and holding it back, and then the red energy dissipated. "I won't let you harm Sasuke-kun," shouted a figure who was standing in one of the trees that decorated the courtyard. The spectators and combatants looked towards the figure and saw a blonde girl wearing a sky-blue robe. "As Sasuke-kun's Heim and as the defender of love and beauty, I, Yamanaka Ino, shall stop you," she said while pointing at Naruto. Naruto and the onlookers' sweat dropped at the sight while Sasuke simply ignored her. "You're sure you didn't get the beauty part wrong, Ino-chan? I mean, a defender of love and beauty has to be beautiful first, right?" Naruto shouted. Ino seethed at the comment. "Why, you little," she said, trembling in a vein visible on the side of her head. She jumped towards Naruto, a blade of ice already forming on her hand, and shouted, "Die." She then proceeded to attack Naruto, who easily dodged most her thrusts and swipes. However, he did not notice Ino make a small sheet of ice on the floor, which caused him to slip. Ino slashed downwards, intent on dealing the killing blow. Clang! Naruto looked up at his savior and saw two heads with pink and violet hair. Sakura-chan, Hinata-chan. Tsunade saw it all from her spot near the gate. The space around the violet-haired girl's arm seemed to be distorted, as if wind was some kind of energy enveloping it. The pink one, on the other hand, had what seemed to be vines sprouting out of her arm. The vines were wrapped around the blonde girl's wrist, effectively stopping her from putting more force into her attack. Hinata made a sideward chop towards Ino, who seemingly melted out of her skin, leaving a statue of ice. To the onlookers, that was a bit short from Ino's neck, but it was to their surprise when the head of the ice statue fell off, cleanly severed at the neck. Sakura pulled out a green whip and lashed out at Ino. Ino barely had time to duck as the end of the whip sailed past her head. She grabbed the whip before Sakura got the chance to pull it back. The whip suddenly started to be covered in ice. The ice quickly started to gather down the length of the whip, and Sakura, who let go of the whip lest she have her arm frozen too. Ino was only recovering when she saw Hinata running towards her direction. She let go of the frozen whip, which shattered on the ground. She backflipped, avoiding a palm strike that nicked her robe but caused a very long cut. Hinata was hot on her heels and threw a punch at the recovering Ino. Ino doubled over from the force of the blow that Hinata threw. That girl was able to hit the other from 5 feet away, Tsunade thought, feeling an extremely big headache coming on. Ino was kneeling. "You pant, bitch," she shouted. Then the ground near her exploded with blue energy and a shape started to form behind her. The shape turned out to be a wolf about as big as Ino herself. "Fenrir," Ino started. "These two ugly girls have annoyed me for the last time. We are going to finish them here, all right?" The ice dog nodded in confirmation. "If you're going to go all out, then we will too," was shouted by Sakura and Hinata in unison. Hinata glowed with energy and the wind started to gather around her. The green energy condensed into something on her shoulder. The something turned out to be an eagle. "Fujin," Hinata said. The ground near Sakura rumbled and slowly, a shape started to break the surface. It rose up until it was nearly a story tall. It shook of some loose soil and earth, revealing itself to be a dragon. "Kuryu," Sakura said. The three individuals and creatures started to gather energy when all of a sudden a voice shouted, "Stop." The three stopped charging their attacks, which led Tsunade to question who was the individual who could command respect among such monsters. She faced forward again and saw an old man wearing a white and red robe, while smoking a pipe. "You must be Tsunade's sensei," he stated simply. Tsunade could only dumbly respond, "Hi." The old man placed a hand on her shoulder. "Just on time," he said, then made a sweeping motion towards the school building. "Welcome to Konoha Gakuen." He shouted heartily. The headache Tsunade was feeling grew worse. End. Zensu, prelude. One more time, Tsunade shouted, much to the dismay of the three genin. They were training in the woods near Tazuna's house and were, in Tsunade's opinion, making very little progress. She should note, however, that the little progress only applied to Naruto. Damn it! Naruto shouted for the nth time as he looked at the results of his attempt, none. A few hours earlier, it was day number 2 in the week before Zabuza was supposed to attack again. Deciding that just sitting around would do nothing for them, Tsunade decided to get some training in. You already know the tree climbing technique. She started as she used her crutches to place herself next to a tree. Now I will teach you a more attack-related chakra control technique. She raised her hand, extended her pointer finger. Like I said before, proper chakra control can have devastating results on your opponent, she said, and then thrust her finger at the tree. Her finger went through the wood, causing a small crack which then grew larger until the tree was split cleanly down the middle. All the genin, except Sasuke, looked at the demonstration with shocked expressions. However, this technique is still beyond your level, she said, which provoked a disappointed from Naruto. What we will be doing is a variation, which will simply involve gathering chakra in one specific part of your body to make your attacks stronger and to lessen the damage received from an enemy's attack. She then walked over to a tree and slapped her hand on it, creating a very deep hand imprint. Pick a tree and practice on it, she said, and walked over to a nearby boulder, then sat down. Begin. It was now almost night time, as evidenced by the orange tint of the sky. That's enough for today, Tsunade said as she assessed the results of her students' training. Sasuke's tree had a lot handprints on it, each one of decent depth. Naruto also had a lot of handprints on it, but most of them didn't even sink that deep. Sakura, on the other hand, had very few handprints on her tree, but the handprints on her tree were deep, almost matching the one Tsunade made earlier. I think I've found our medic, Tsunade thought after returning to Tazuna's house. The three ate the feast prepared for them by Tsunami. Naruto was on his second bowl when Oi on the opposite side of the table spoke up. You can't win. The three genin paused in their eating to look at the boy. What did you say? Naruto shouted from his position. The boy affixed Naruto with a glare. You won't be able to beat Gato, he said coldly. Inari. Tsunami shouted. Shut up, Inari said. They're just gonna be killed like. Inari stopped as if remembering something, then left the table. Anar. Tsunami shouted as she stood up from the table. Please forgive him, she started after sitting down, deciding to leave Inari be. That boy has had a rough time since. Tsunami. Tazuna interrupted from the head of the table. Hi, I know it is not my place to speak of it, Tsunami said after bowing. The genin and one jonin resumed their dinner, knowing better than to get involved in something not related to the mission. Day 4. Naruto dodged what looked to be a harmless punch by his oh-so-beloved Sakura-chan and then leapt away to put some distance between him and her. Naruto paled as he saw that the seemingly harmless punch made a small crater in the ground. What's sensei thinking pitting me against Sakura-chan? Naruto thought before narrowly avoided another punch which split the tree behind him in half. It was here that Naruto thought about retaliating but was stopped mid-thought when Sakura held her face in her hands and then started crying. Naruto was stopped in his tracks. Being unable to resist a girl, like most other anime main characters, he decided to see what was wrong and how he could help. Nay, what's wrong, Sakura-chan? He asked after approaching her and placing a hand on her shoulder. Sakura roughly shrugged the hand away. Naruto no baka, she shouted, then turned her back to him. She paused slightly in her sobbing to say, Why won't you take me seriously? She asked. What do you mean by seriously? Naruto asked. Somehow his hyperactive brain came up with its own answer before Sakura could reply. Seriously, as a girlfriend? Then Naruto started jumping about saying, Sakura-chan's my girlfriend, in a sing-song voice. Meanwhile, Sakura was having an internal debate. His girlfriend? What the hell is this bastard thinking? Inner Sakura thought, although it does seem like a pretty good idea, but inner Sakura cut her off. Hey, focus, Sakura. The one we like is Sasuke-kun, remember? Sakura seemed to consider this for a moment, but he has been so cold. I'm kinda getting tired of chasing him, Sakura replied to her inner self. That just mean that you're not trying hard enough. We just have to think of new ways to use our womanly charm to melt that icy exterior. This silenced Sakura. You're right. Why did I give up so soon? Sakura thought with vigor at a girl. Shanaru. Back in the outside world, Naruto paused in the middle of rejoicing at his newfound girlfriend to wave a hand in front of said girlfriend's face. "Oi, Sakura-chan, you still there?" Sakura snapped out of her trance and directed her gaze at Naruto. "By the way, Naruto," she started. Naruto replied. Sakura placed her hands behind her and asked all innocently, "Why wouldn't you hit me back when we were sparring?" she said while bending forward. "Well, that's because Sakura-chan's a girl," Naruto replied with a big grin on his face. Unnoticeable to Naruto, Sakura's left eye started twitching. "I see, because I'm a girl," Sakura said, her voice shaky. "Naruto, could you close your eyes?" "Huh? Why?" Naruto asked, perplexed by the request. "I'm gonna give you a pre-say-nt," Sakura said in a tone that made Naruto's body shiver with each syllable of present. "Okay," Naruto said and did as he was told. "This is it, my first real beep," Naruto thought, recalling all his previous beeps with Tsunade and immediately dismissing them as accidents. "No peeking, okay," Sakura said cheerfully. "Okay," Naruto replied, all the while growing all red in the face. "Now pucker up," Sakura said while rearing her fist back. Naruto did so. "Here it comes," Naruto thought as he prepared himself. "POW" was heard, seemingly throughout the entire forest as Sakura's fist connected with Naruto's face. "I didn't know that beepies hurt this much." Naruto collided with a nearby tree and promptly passed out. Tsunade, whose legs had already healed enough to allow movement, later found the unconscious Naruto, who also had a big bruise on the side of his face. A bruise which had almost disappeared must be a gift from his tenant, she thought while picking Naruto up and proceeding to head back to Tazuna's house. Day 6. Naruto had woken up after having a dream of his Sakura-chan turning into a giant gray version of herself. The giant then picked him up and started to crush him in between her hands. It was after feeling that his bones had seemingly been broken did he wake up, all sweaty, and seeing that it was early into the morning. Seeing no point in going back to sleep after he had just woken up, Naruto proceeded downstairs and was greeted by an already awake Tsunami. "Ohayo, Naruto-kun." "Ohayo, Tsunami-ni-chan," Naruto greeted back. Naruto's stomach chose this moment to grumble loudly, causing both people in the room to sweat drop. "Hey," Naruto said while scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Tsunami only smiled. "Naruto-kun, would you mind fetching Inari and telling him that it's time for breakfast?" Naruto hesitated at first, not wanting to put up with the brat, but after another growl from his stomach, he decided that for breakfast, he could endure the brat's presence even for a few minutes. "Where would he be?" Naruto asked Tsunami, who had started to cook. "You will probably find him downstairs at this time, Naruto-kun." Naruto proceeded to a door near the stairs and opened it by a crack. Seeing a stairway that led down, Naruto opened the door fully and descended. As Naruto descended, the temperature around him seemed to grow hotter. "What is he doing down here?" The stairways stopped, and in a rather medium-sized room, Naruto found Inari hammering at something on an anvil. Inari finished pounding the sword and picked it up with a pair of tongs. He lifted the hot piece of metal and then dipped the metal into a container of water, causing steam to rise from it. "What are all these swords for?" Naruto asked. Naruto's sudden question startled Inari and almost made him drop the metal he was placing on a nearby stone table. After regaining his bearings, he turned and then glared at Naruto. "How did you get in here?" "The door was open," Naruto deadpanned. He walked and inspected a rack that was lined with swords. "Did you make all these?" Naruto asked as he picked up a sword from one of the racks and unsheathed it. Despite not being a sword expert, Naruto could tell that the sword was well made as he viewed it within the light emanating from the fire of the forge. "What did you come here for?" Inari shouted after angrily grabbing the sword from Naruto's hands. "Tsunami-ni-chan told me to get you. It's time for breakfast," Naruto said as he glared right back at Inari. "Tell her."